Hi, my name is Hazem Gaber, and we're gonna start talking about fish tape. So fish tape is used to pull cable through a conduit or a raceway. Now, you'll find there's two types of fish tape. There's steel fish tape and there's fiberglass fish tape. Now, steel fish tape is more rigid, so it's much better at fishing through a conduit that's really tough. So you're better off usually with a steel fish tape. A fiberglass fish tape is really light though, and it doesn't conduct electricity. So if you're trying to fish a conduit with live wire, there's always a risk that the steel fish tape will scratch um, one of the conductors in the conduit and electrocute you. So then in that case, you gotta use a fiberglass fish tape. Now, you'll notice when you get the fish tape, it is bent at the tip, and that helps the fish tape push through. It also lets you um, tie stuff to it. So what you do is you stick your fish tape in the conduit and you turn this handle counterclockwise, or sorry, clockwise, and that ejects more fish tape. When you get it to the end, then you attach your cables or whatever to the fish tape, and then you pull it back, and you can pull your cables through. But you turn this counterclockwise, and it winds the tape. Now, if you're sometimes, and you got this, so Klein Tools makes this leader that clamps onto the end of your fish tape, and that helps your fish tape bend around corners really well. And it's really good. You can put it on a steel fish tape as well, because you want the rigidity when you're pushing through stuff, but you want flexibility right at the end or right when there's a bend. And if it doesn't help, you can add lubricant. And sometimes what we do, what you want to do, if you're pulling a lot of cables, you won't pull them with the fish tape. You'll use the fish tape to get to the end of the conduit, and then you'll tie a standard rope or a mule rope or a pull string to your fish tape, and you'll pull it through, and then you'll tie your cables to the rope or the string, and then you'll use the string or the rope to pull the cables through the conduit. That's way easier. So these tapes, yeah, they come in steel and fiberglass, and they come in different lengths up to 250 feet. And they've got foot markings on them, so you know how far you've gone. Now, here's a trick, and you always want to. This is a this is a kit that you can buy, but like if you've got a brand new conduit, what you do, let's say if I've got a conduit, for example, it's like a long distance. What you do is you get and you want to fish it, you can shove the fish tape in here. But if this has got a lot of bends, for example, it'll still work, but it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time and it's a lot of elbow grease. So you get like a Ziploc bag and you fill it with air and seal it, and you want it to be the size of your conduit, and then you tape a string to it. And then on the other side, you get a vacuum cleaner. And since now this is in your conduit's airtight, you suck on the on the on the conduit with your vacuum cleaner, and in like 30 seconds it'll pull the whole bag through, including the string. And now you've got pull string. You don't have to fish the conduit. But this only works if the conduit's empty. So now some companies make a vacuum cleaner that's just designed to do just that, but you can use a normal shop vac. Now, the advantage of getting the kit though is it comes with plugs that are standard sized for different size conduits. So you got the 1 inch conduit, 2 inch, whatever, and you just hook it up. Now, if you're pulling a super long cable, then you'll want to use a tugger. And the tugger is designed to pull your cable. So it's got a pulley and it's got a motor, and you attach your pull string or whatever, and it'll pull really slowly. But you want to calculate the amount of force you can use because different cables have different maximum pulling strengths. So you might only be able to put, say, 20 pounds on a cable, or 50 pounds, or 100 pounds, depending on what you're pulling. Now, this lets us splice two cables together. So if we have a really long cable run, and you got cables that are really thick, so you can have a cable that's got like a 2 inch or 4 inch or 6 inch diameter. So that cable might weigh 100 pounds per meter or whatever. But if it's super heavy, then you can't pull it all as one piece. So you got multiple pieces. Sometimes you can't even buy it as one piece, so you won't have to splice it somewhere. Now you can't splice a cable in a conduit, so don't even think about it. If you have a conduit, for example, then you have to have a splice box, and in here you buy a splicing kit or a butt splice kit, and you splice your wire in here. But you've got this splicing kit, and what this does is it literally makes the cable spliced like from the factory, except it won't have a jacket on it. So this lets us literally weld two pieces of copper together. And so what we do is we got our copper wire here and here. Let's say this is my copper, and we butt them really close, and then we wrap some graphite around, and this like heats up. We add some powdered copper to the joint, and this melts them together until they're one solid cable. But this isn't really that common. So, and then here's the important thing: is we got the wire strippers. So remember, now it is super important why I said earlier in the last video, don't use a what's it called, a cutter to strip the wire. So let's say this is my wire, and inside here, this is my copper, and the outside part is my insulation. So this has a certain diameter depending on the gauge of wire. So if it's number 10, it's a certain diameter or whatever. So these blades, these strippers, they've got little notches in them depending on the size of your wire. So what you do is you put your wire through the correct size notch, and you press down on the handle and you twist, and it will cut. It's designed, their precision designed to cut right down to the metal, to the copper, and you'll end up with a nice, you'll remove the insulation and you'll just have copper, and there won't be a scratch on the copper. But if you use a dike or a whatever it's called, cutter, a diagonal cutter or a side cutter, there's no, that thing, the blade isn't designed to stop. It's designed to cut all the way through. So you're putting just enough pressure to get to the copper and no more. You have to. So you're pushing on the handle, but you're not pushing too tight. But what you end up doing is you'll never be perfect. So you'll end up nicking, you'll end up cutting a small groove right in the metal. And that's a big no-no, because now you've reduced the diameter of the metal. And you also, depending if this is really thin, then you risk this piece breaking off. So it's not recommended. You can get these strippers. So this stripper, for example, this one, this one, this one, they cut different gauges, and then some of these, this one's designed to cut like a really thick wire, but yeah. And then we've also got crimpers. So the crimper lets us put an end. So let's say we've got a lug, like an insulating lug or a ground lug. So we can attach, say, a ground wire to a screw. So the crimper will, like, you put the connector on the end of your wire and you crimp down and it crimps it. And then we've got our fuse pullers. So fuse pullers let us pull fuses out, especially in really tight spaces. And you want to be careful because fuses are made of glass and they can also be energized. So having this is good for safety. And then you'll want to have an electrical tester. So this is not a multimeter, it's just a tester. But this tester here, when you plug it in to an outlet, it'll light up a different combination of lights depending on how the circuit's wired. So if the outlet's dead, you'll get no lights. But um, if the outlet's live, you'll get different combinations. So usually, I think having this light and this light on means that you've got the correct wiring. But it's got a diagram here, and you can just read it, and it'll tell you. And this one works without a plug, but you put this in the hot, and you put this one in the neutral, and you can or it works on DC or whatever. But this one works as well. It'll light up. But this works for um, when you don't have a standard outlet. And then you'll need a ladder. So remember we got step ladders, and they come in different sizes and shapes and materials. And we've also got extension ladders, and we've got lifts. So I call this a JLG, but it's basically a cherry picker. That's what it is. And cherry picker um, is rated for, some are rated for indoors and some are rated for outdoors, and they got different heights and different basket sizes. So these can get us into like really precise areas where you can't always work. Scissor lifts are less precise, but again, they're rated indoor and outdoor, and you can get different size lifts and different heights. And so some run on diesel and some run on electricity. So if you get an electric one, make sure you charge it. And then we've got explosive actuated tools. We call this a Hilti gun because Hilti was the most popular, but Ramset makes some as well. They're pretty popular. And these are like little bullets. So it's a screw with a bullet on the end, and it's full of gunpowder. And you stick the screw in with the gun, and you press it up against whatever you're screwing, and you pull the trigger, and it fires it right in. So it's really good for concrete and steel. Sometimes you gotta be careful because when you fire it into concrete, let's say especially a ceiling, for example, sometimes the concrete's really brittle, especially if it's old. And so if this is my concrete ceiling, if you fire a screw in, sometimes it'll hold and sometimes it'll rip right chunk right out of the ceiling, and you'll have mess everywhere and it won't even hold. So you gotta be careful. There's different types of screws and different amounts of gunpowder depending on your situation. And that's it. Any questions? Please post a comment. Thank you.